Hey y'all, here OS Reviews. In the past, we've checked out a number of smart instruments, including the Piano, which is a smart digital keyboard featuring LED illuminated keys that help guide your finger whilst you're learning how to play. And from that same Xiaomi ecosystem brand, we also saw the Populele, which is a smart ukulele that has a fretboard with LED lights underneath that again tells you how to place your fingers as you're learning how to play. And so the premise of these products is to make the process of learning a musical instrument more accessible. And so today we're taking a look at yet another example of that. This is the CyberG from Enya Music. This time around it claims to be a hybrid smart guitar with a piano or keyboard stuck there in the middle. So it's of course different from a traditional guitar. In fact, this model doesn't have strings on the fretboard. It's just chords that you can tap on using the LED lights, but the actual piano piece can actually be detached as a modular accessory, very similar to the Piano, if you wanted to use it as a traditional keyboard. But when docked, your right hand uses it to play back melodies and can still be kind of a challenging way to learn how to play as well as sing at the same time. There is a gamification aspect that will assign you a score based on how accurately you're playing. You can record yourself, and it can be a next level karaoke machine or really a next generation guitar hero of sorts, which is going to be a little bit more intricate. There's also a built-in loudspeaker. It can be used in fact as a Bluetooth speaker if you're just listening to music. So specifically the 3,400 milliamp hour capacity battery will typically last roughly 5 hours if you're using the built-in speakers, up to 10 hours if you're using external speakers, and there is a 3.5mm headphone jack, supporting external recording devices as well, so pretty versatile. In fact, the keyboard portion is a MIDI device, so if you are detaching it from the guitar, you can actually pair it with other apps, including the GarageBand app for music production purposes as well. And otherwise, the entire setup weighs about 2 kilograms, so it is a little bit on the heavier side because of all the aluminum and metal that they're using for the pretty premium construction here. And last but not least, I'll just mention that there are some optional accessories that you can pick up, including a wireless pedal, so they are expanding on the ecosystem, but you could always use your own microphone if desired. The CyberG otherwise can also fold down for easier transit and comes in multiple colors, including white, which is quite clean. There's also going to be colorways of pink, purple, as well as a more traditional black that we have here. But there are again two slight quirks. First one being that the CyberG is a little on the pricey side in my opinion. It is again very well built and presented and can be quite versatile, but at roughly $400 MSRP, I do think it's a little steep. If they made it more accessible, perhaps a light version down the line, it could attract more folks that are on the fence and want to just try something like this out without really spending quite as much. But anyways, inside of here we have just a quick start guide, and then further down below we have a hard shell case with the actual instrument, which is again folded into two halves for easier transport. And they've also coined the playful term key guitar as a way to describe it as, again, a keyboard guitar fusion, not just a traditional guitar. So it is quite quirky. Now the second slight weakness that I alluded to earlier is, again, if you are trying to learn a real guitar, obviously this isn't going to be quite it, since you can't translate these learnings into a regular instrument afterwards because of the fretboard there containing just buttons and keys that are simplified for playing those chords, compared to the keyboard section down below there is obviously not going to be found on a real guitar. You're just strumming using your right hand. So it is kind of a new form of instrument in a way. So again, if you are trying to learn a real guitar, maybe this isn't going to be quite as practical as the Populele that has physical strings, but subsequently that one required you to tune the strings, and also string instruments in general can be more fragile. The strings can break over time, you have to replace it, compared to this doesn't really have any of those moving parts. Pros and cons there. Still, it can be quite fun if you are just into music in general, I guess. Anyways, inside of the packaging here, we have some stickers. So again, showing some pretty good presentation for different chords as well as keys if you wanted to stick it onto the fretboard. And it's divided into two sections. Down below here, we have main head of the guitar with the keyboard that we can also pop out, holding on this section a little bit, and you can tell that it can then slide out like so using the pogo contacts. So it can be thought of as an alternative to the Piano in this particular detached mode, although the number of keys is going to be a little bit more limited. More specifically, we have 20 keys compared to on the Piano, we have closer to 29 to 30 keys. There's an extra section there, and all the keys are going to be a little bit smaller since it has to fit into the guitar's body. But still, we have the same pressure sensitivity, similar controls for power, digitally shifting the keys higher and lower in terms of their position, and overall, again, pretty simple. It charges using USB Type-C if you're not just docking it into the guitar. and overall still remains comfortable enough to use just after a little bit of acclimation. Color underneath the LED lights can also change accordingly to kind of indicate that you are shifting between lower notes versus higher notes and octaves. One thing I will say though is just like the Pop U piano, there is no built-in speaker of its own. So that's the part where if you plug it into this bass, you'll be using the louder speakers of the body, or of course you can connect to Bluetooth on your phone and use your phone or external speakers. And the section is further foldable, so you can actually twist on the bottom part here to expand it into a more full-sized guitar head, as you can tell there, which is kind of hollow, making it more ergonomic. It's quite cool looking, I have to say. It's a similar design I've seen on some electric instruments, including violins and guitars previously. Now on the edge here, you'll also find some of the controls, including this multifunctional knob, which can be twisted to change the volume, as well as long press to turn it on and off. And then over here we have the 3.5mm headphone jack, Type-C for both charging as well as output using OTG. Bottom here also features a larger phono output, and other accessories here are inclusive of the actual fretboard, which is again completely digital in this case, which I guess is the one part about this instrument that's the most simplified, for better or for worse. But at least it's not bad when it comes to the overall build and craftsmanship. Simply snaps into place onto the end there of the guitar. And then final accessories inside of this compartment is inclusive of a standard wall adapter, typical USB Type-C charging cable, as well as the shoulder strap. And so popping those pieces together, snapping into place, as well as the shoulder strap, which by the way is even emblazed with the CyberG logo on it, offering decent ergonomics. And now turning on the instrument, you'll see the LED ring here start to glow. The keyboard section will then be calibrated accordingly with the rest of the guitar. You hear that chime. Fretboard here, as you can tell, also has LED lights underneath to illuminate their position when you are using it in a slightly darker environment. And you can hear audio come out from that built-in speaker, as well as change the volume, again using the knob. But when it comes to pressure sensitivity, once again, if you are pressing light versus heavier, you'll get that variance, so there can be more emotive playing similar to on a real piano, and you're just controlling those melodies using your right hand, while your left hand is just controlling the chord section. So the basics are not too difficult to master, although for coordination between your left hand, right hand with the melody, as well as singing at the same time, it will still take some practice. It is for sure still going to be more complex compared to traditional Guitar Hero, because the keyboard section down below here is at least mirroring what you would find from a real piano. There's also drums that you can activate here as well. Become faster as well as slower, as you can hear. And you can tap on the function key there once, again, to kind of speed it up as well as slow it down. And so even if you're using it detached from the smartphone app, there are basic controls once you've mastered that you can begin playing immediately, again with that built-in speaker at the very least, including the ability to even change through some of the digital instrument profiles or tones of the instrument. For example, instead of the regular piano, we can change it to electric guitar. Some flute instruments. And by the way, at the very end of the fretboard, there is also kind of a digital switch that is simulating what a real knob on a guitar or violin would do in terms of tuning. So if you are tapping on a chord, and you're also then pressing on this key, you can hear how it will shift higher or lower as you are listening. So that actually will correspond to, again, shifting the notes higher or lower as well. So there's plenty of control coming from a digital instrument. And also to their credit, all the controls do feel at least pretty responsive, even though they are, again, touch based on the fretboard section, but no real issues when it comes to responsiveness at the very least. Jumping into the app, turning on Bluetooth and location services, it should find the CyberG nearby. You can set different presets or profiles that you can click on and switch more easily in terms of the sound of the instrument as well as the rhythm. And down below here, you can also go into either the solo play mode or the sing and play modes. For solo, we have access to the similar sound effects that we heard earlier, inclusive of piano, electric guitar, there's some Chinese instruments, flute, organ, E string, and it looks like there's a couple that are currently locked and might be coming soon as they expand on the sound effects. And for the chord pad, because it is a digital instrument, you're able to assign and customize all of these buttons to go into different keys instead, different chords, making it pretty versatile, as well as the battery percentage gauge at the very bottom there as well. Otherwise, on the very top here, we can tap to begin finding different pop songs you want to play back, classics, as well as certain artists that you're interested in looking up. And there's also going to be a label on the side for whether this track is easy to play, medium, or hard. And that means it will increase the amount of shifting that you may have to do with your fingers, as well as add in the keyboard section for the melody using your right hand, versus easy, maybe you're only using the chord pad on the left hand, and it's going to be much more slow in terms of tempo. But you can play around with this and again find your favorite songs or artists. For example, using Adele as an example, we can search and then find those tracks accordingly. The filter tab, by the way, also allows you to search for specific, again, languages for the artist, as well as a difficulty tier. It seems like the hard difficulty tier, though, is still something that is growing at the moment. There's going to be fewer songs labeled as hard compared to easy and medium is where the majority are at this point in time. And one difference compared to some of the other smart pianos that we've seen recently is you can't really change the difficulty of one particular track just by clicking on it. That level is hard-coded, so it's not like we can just go in there and increase the complexity by clicking inside. So even more granular control will be nice to find in the future. There's also a Create tab over here, allowing you to use your own music and convert them into a structure that the guitar will be able to play back in. If you want to get into more advanced song composition, for example, and there are certain tracks that are maybe missing from the library at this point in time. So tapping on a track just to serve as demo, this is going to be Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Some additional controls including playing back a snippet of the song to determine whether you want to shift the key higher or lower based on your vocal range, as well as some additional controls being the rhythm of the song can also be adjusted, and when you're satisfied, you can also begin to record the track and listen to it back later on. And so as the track begins, you'll see the keys start to flash, which is the area we need to press on, and then start to the next chord and continue along. Chord pad here is also RGB, so it's going to be color coordinated to make it easier for you to memorize and remember. Red is going to be maybe this top section, versus the blue key here is going to be the next one, so on and so forth. So as you start to play more and more, you'll be able to gradually memorize it, maybe just by looking at the color alone. And because you are playing back the entire track, you can control the rhythm as you are singing based on whatever you're most comfortable with. And by the way, if we peel off the sticker with a label of, again, the keys, you can see that the actual buttons underneath is coated with a soft touch rubber accent, so it's a little bit more grippy, and again using a dimple here that you can press down on to activate. Alright, so generally speaking, the karaoke mode works fine. Back into the main menu, the second tab up top allows us to change profiles of the guitar. Aside from the tempo, there's also a few more presets, including blues as well as rock and roll, providing some of the popular chords when you're playing that genre of music. And then finally, under the more advanced settings toggle, you're able to see if there's any firmware updates, and for the chord pad section, the fretboard, you're able to also change the lighting effects from a mono single color, which is blue by default. Alternatively, we can also turn the fretboard completely off if you want to consume less power, as well as activate a multicolored mode or a rainbow mode, as you can tell there, a little bit more vibrant, similar to the Pop U piano. Some additional vocal effects can also be played around with, in addition to mixing the volume output of different instrumentals that the device is simulating, including drums versus the melody or the rhythm. You can make certain sections louder or more quiet. And last but not least, under the tools section of the app, you're also able to trigger metronome, helping you play to a specific rhythm more easily, and that will just come out from your phone speaker instead, versus increasing the speed, so on and so forth as you are practicing, and some more sound effects coming out from your phone speaker as well for more layering effects, as well as a tuner, so this will play back the D, A, E, G, B, and E sounds, and then using the microphone it can detect if it's currently calibrated correctly or not, telling you how to move the pegs if you're tapping on that particular key. So it's using the built-in microphones. It's more applicable for a real guitar that has actual strings, because this company does make regular guitars as well. So these features aren't unique to only the CyberG, but rather for some of their other models. Or if you have a regular guitar, you can even use this app to, again, learn some of the basic chords, as well as, again, tune the real guitar, access a digital metronome under this middle tab. Now, taking a look at Bluetooth settings, you'll notice that the device actually shows up in a couple of different forms. For instance, there's the CyberG system, which is automatically connected to the app, but there's also the Enya MIDI device. So if you're using the keyboard separately, you can pair just the keyboard for music creation, as well as a audio profile if you want to use it as a Bluetooth speaker. So let's do a quick demo of what that sounds like. Playing back a audio track from our phone over to the Bluetooth speaker. So turning it down there, takeaway is actually the sound quality is really not bad if you're using it as just a basic speaker for playing back some music on your phone. It is for sure going to be much louder and more impactful than any phone speaker, making it a little bit more versatile. If you're not necessarily playing, you can still listen to music. Detach the fretboard, for example, to make it a little bit more compact and maybe just sit there on a desk. So there we have it. That's been a closer look at the Enya Music CyberG, this kind of fusion smart instrument that combines a keyboard, aka mini piano, as well as the ergonomics of a guitar, although the chords are definitely simplified on that section, though you also have the drums that you can bring in, just creating more sound effects if you don't necessarily have a band with you. Of course, unlike a real string instrument though, there is no kind of tuning involved, and there are fewer moving parts. So if you are trying to learn a real guitar, this is probably not going to be the one for you, but if you are into kind of music production and you want a even more refined as well as complex version of something like Guitar Hero, this might be interesting to consider. I do like the modular concept at the very least, and maybe in a next generation revision they could even add in more modules and snap in those pieces and just kind of mix and match. That could be a really cool ecosystem to explore. So you can find out more details in the links down below, but for now that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That has been a closer look at the kind of funky CyberG smart instrument from Enya Music.